Hey everyone, before we dive in, this is Brooke again, one of your Viterbi admission counselors with a quick update for all USC applicants for fall 2025. March 26th is the big day. First year admission decisions, including those for Viterbi applicants, will be released. Keep an eye on your inbox. You'll get an email letting you know when your decision is ready in your applicant portal. For our transfer applicants, don't worry, your applications are still under review and all decisions or spring grade requests will be sent out by May 31st. We can't wait to welcome our future Trojans. As always, fight on. And now let's get that podcast started.
This is Viterbi Voices.
Coming to you from the University of Southern California, Viterbi School of Engineering.
We're here to give you the inside scoop on research, classes, student life, and so much more.
All of these shared by students, faculty, alumni, and other members of the USC community.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode, a special episode of Viterbi Voices. As usual, I am one of your hosts. My name is Paul Ledesma, Executive Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
Hi, everyone. My name is Safi Patel. I'm your other co-host. I'm a senior studying computer science and doing my master's in engineering management.
Safi, how's it going? For full disclosure, this is USC's spring break week. And so are you around LA? Are you gone? What's happening during spring break? What's the deal?
I am thankfully home for spring break. I live in Orange County, so it's not too far.
Right.
But I was ready for a week of relaxation. It's been a chaotic first half of second semester, so I was ready to just sleep for a week straight. So I'm glad that spring break came right now.
Any fun activities that you've done or that you're planning on doing? I can totally understand if it's just like total relaxation, but is it eating in special places?
So it's Ramadan right now too, so I'm fasting.
Oh, it's Ramadan. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like random dinner parties going on,
yeah.
but there's not like a big event happening. But a lot of my friends are back in town for their spring break, so it's more just like a catch up with the family and family friends, which is really nice.
That's nice. Very cool.
I think admissions is like the opposite of spring break right now.
That's a good way to put it. It's the opposite of spring break. No, yeah, we're full tilt. For a number of reasons, admission decisions for the university are kind of finalizing themselves. Those will go out next week by the university. So all admission decisions for first year applicants will go out on Wednesday, March 26th. So about a week from now, which we're recording this, and it will. We're putting up some information right now to prepare everybody to get ready for that. As usual, a highly competitive applicant pool, of which, it's really, really hard, and that we have fantastic applicants. It's really hard to find somebody who doesn't deserve to be admitted, but it's not about who deserves it because everybody does. It's just a small, amount of class seats. So we got to make sure that we get the right community in here. And when I say the right community, that doesn't mean that someone is the wrong community. It just means that we have to find the best possible one that we can get. And it's a really challenging time right now as we kind of go that part of it. And as this process kind of circles the drain, for lack of a better term, we're almost done. I know a lot of students and family members are out there anxious, and we're getting lots of emails right now that are somewhat panicked, trying to think that there's something they can do in the 11th hour. And no, there's nothing you can do. Just let the process run its course. We're almost there. My personal cell phone is getting text messages from people that I know. It's just an ongoing process right now where I'm like, yep, I get it. It's hard. And now like also the most obscure and fervent of rumors start to come into play. Like, hey, I heard this is what's happening, or this is what's going to make a difference. Like, no, that's just panic, and like let it all happen. It'll run its right course.
I was gonna say, I hope at least it settles after the admissions emails go out, but I don't think it does it?
It doesn't. No. I mean, and that's fine. This is just the time of year, and basically, we've got a lot of people anxious, which I can understand and I sympathize. And then we get students that are admitted, and then they have a short time period in which they need to make a decision. So if you are admitted, go to your applicant portal and sign up for one of our visit programs. We've got 5 different on-campus weekday programs, 1 weekend program. I think something that's different about USC is that we don't have a single admitted students day. We have 6 different days for admitted students to come visit, one of which is on the weekend, five of which is on the weekday. And they're all great. And I think that students should come to any one of those that works best for their schedule. Explore USC is what they're called. We really think you should do it. And I think different than a lot of other universities, it's not just a tour campus and get a message about the university. It's about visiting specifically and diving deep into the engineering program, sitting with our faculty, learning more about our programs, touring facilities, understanding what this academic experience is going to be all about as an engineering or computer science student. That's what happens at each of our Explore USC programs. So I really think they should do that. And we're gearing up to have a number of great opportunities for those students as they come through over the next month or so. They start on March 31st and they run through April. And if you're unable to visit campus, we will have a number of virtual opportunities. We'll have demo classes led by our faculty. We'll have live chats led by our current students. We will have a number of different events that will happen around the world. Events that will happen for admitted students in India, in China, in London, in across the country, from New York to Boston to DC to Chicago to Texas to Seattle, Vancouver, you name it. We're kind of everywhere all through the month of April. So we will have lots of different opportunities for students to sit with us and chat a little bit more about the really important decision that they have coming up. So I think it's really great. And that's just where we are on the timeline, which is absolutely fine. And then we also have high school juniors looking right now. And so there's a lot of high school juniors. Yesterday, I led two different presentations, one with about 50 people, one with about 35 people. And it was just, visiting campus, learning all about it. And students are starting their admission process. And we've got 3 more this week that are going on. And next week we continue on with other large events. So it's just a big time, and it's an exciting time as we get through this process. And I'm excited that we have a lot of people starting their college search and a lot of people that are beginning to come to a close and make that decision. So yeah, that's what happens during our quote spring break. It's a lot.
So no, we're relaxing.
We're busy.
Yep.
We're definitely busy. But that's why it's also exciting that this episode is coming out right now. And if you're listening, you may know by the title of this, but this is a very special 10th anniversary special edition episode where we got together as many of our past Viterbi Voices hosts into one actual recording. We couldn't get 2. They were unavailable. So, and you'll hear that we could not get Maya. We could not get Emily if you were a fan of the podcast and been following over the last 10 years. But this is our 10th year of this podcast. And we got together a number of our hosts to reflect and remember on how the podcast started and horror stories that happened throughout the podcast time, and just sharing the experience of what it was like to host a podcast, and also catch up with these former hosts as they are all now professionals doing other professional things, working in industry with a variety of different careers, and honestly how the podcast has still affected their life today in some small way. And so we talk about that. And Safia, you were here for the conversation. What were your thoughts on it? Like, what were the takeaways from this? What did you hear that you didn't expect to hear as we got everybody together?
I think it's awesome seeing what about the environment at USC has changed since the time they've been here. I know they mentioned different spots being hubs on campus versus what it's like now and how things have changed after COVID. It was also cool seeing the things that never change. A lot of our horror stories were the exact same.
On recording, horror stories of recording. Yeah.
Yeah.
The simple thing of forgetting to press record happens consistently.
So it's nice having that semblance of, some things never change. It's also just awesome to see that they're all like killing it in their professional, I can't speak, so sorry, professional lives now.
Yeah.
So it's really cool catching up to them and seeing what they're up to, how they kind of took their Viterbi degree and transformed it to their life now.
Awesome. Very cool. You didn't know anybody, I think, on that group, right?
I think I've listened to some of their episodes before,
Right.
especially early on when I was making my first episode, but I don't think I've ever met any of them. Maya has mentioned 1 or 2 of them, but that's it.
Yeah.
Maya's the only one I would have known.
Yeah, because Maya did it for 2 years prior to you. And so I think that created this buffer of you didn't know anyone other than Maya. And then we didn't have Maya there, unfortunately, because she was busy working. I thought it was kind of cool that our podcast hosts have worked in a variety of industries, right? SpaceX, one is currently at Harvard Medical School.
Yeah.
One has been through Harvard Business School and is currently working in kind of a health related field. So two podcast hosts have gone to Harvard graduate schools, which is, I think, an interesting little trend. Multiple people in like health related fields. We've got one in Microsoft
Yep.
doing
Bloomberg.
device. What's that?
I think Cameron's at Bloomberg.
Bloomberg. Yeah,
Yep.
Bloomberg doing fintech. And then a civil engineer working up
Oh,
in
Turner's
Vancouver,
Construction as
Turner
well.
Construction. Yeah.
Yep.
So we've got kind of like all these different variety of industries across the board, which I think is super, super exciting. And I think in just the small little subset of people who have hosted the Viterbi Voices podcast, you got this really broad
Yeah.
example of what our students do or what our alums do. And that's
I
just
think
in that
it's
small sample.
Yeah, I think it's so reflective of every time we get a question about like what is it like to be an engineer? What is it like to
Mm,
be a Viterbi student? Like, do you have a life? Like, are all of
yeah,
you
yeah,
the
yeah.
same? I think even the fact that these 10 individuals are so vastly different and it's such a small population size, it really shows like what our student body is up to. Like, it's so vast, so diverse, and it's really cool to see.
Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic introduction. For you listeners' sake, it's a lengthy conversation, so we're not going to close it out with a closer afterwards. We're just going to let the conversation ride out, and then it'll end. We'll be back next week with another episode of Viterbi Voices and more information for newly admitted students as we start to turn that corner and get excited about admitted student programming. So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy our 10th anniversary special. I can't believe we've been doing this for 10 years. Oh, you know what's funny? I was forgot to say this. What's also awkward, not awkwardly, oddly coincidental, I don't know. The podcast turned 10 this year. My daughter turns 10 this year.
Oh,
Like
she's just gonna keep up with the podcast then.
it started in the same time period, which is really funny. And I meant to bring it up because everyone talked about like like how some of them are married now
Yeah.
and like their life is moving on. And I
Mhm.
forgot to like some of them don't even know that,
Yeah,
you
they
know,
weren't.
like
Yeah,
that
like
they
you
that it
exist.
all happened. Yeah, she exists or knows about it. And so it was super funny that we wrapped up our recording
Mhm.
and I said goodbye, shut down my computer, and literally McKay walked in the house at that moment. I was like, "Oh, you just missed this. You could have jumped on because you're about to turn 10. This
Anything
podcast
turn
turned 10.
10, jump on the
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah. It's a 10-year anniversary. So I
Yep.
always know it's going to be my cheat sheet from now on. How old's the podcast? How old's my daughter? Or vice versa. How old's my daughter? Well, how old's the
That's
podcast?
tricky.
Which one would I know?
Which one's the priority right now?
Exactly. 2015, big year for me. All right. So, anyways, let's get out of the way, hand it back over to us to introduce you to all of our previous hosts and have this little 10th anniversary conversation and a walk down memory lane, and also to continuously prove just how old I actually am. Thanks, guys. There he is. There's Booty. There's Cameron. There's Audrey. There's Kelly.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Whoa.
We had others coming in. Hold on. Let's see if we can get everybody.
Paul, did you make us all fancy backgrounds?
I didn't for this one. I'm sorry. Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is a super, super fun group. And I think we should get everybody to first introduce themselves. And I think to introduce yourself, why don't you let us know, or let the audience know, who you are, so what your name is, what year you graduated from USC with your degree, what your degree was, and what you're doing now, a little life update, a little brief life update of what you've been doing ever since. And so I think this is the proper chronological order. We'll start with Kelly, and then we'll move to, is it Rhea or is it Audrey? Which one goes next?
Rhea.
Rhea?
Thank you,
Oh,
Paul.
Booty. Shoot, I
You
forgot
did
Booty.
quite
Booty. I think
like,
it's Booty and then me.
Okay, so I'm going to do this like 10 times. I don't know what order anybody goes in at this point. Everyone's the same to me. So we go Kelly, we go Booty, we go Rhea, we go Audrey, we go Cameron. Okay, so let's do that. So Kelly, go for it.
Okay, hi everyone. My name's Kelly Lynch. I was the first co-host of Viterbi Voices podcast. I graduated in 2016 with a degree in civil engineering building science. Since then, I've been working in construction management with a company called Turner Construction. I was working in LA for a number of years doing fun projects, and then recently had some big personal life updates. So I got married to my husband, who I met at USC. And then we moved to Vancouver, Canada, where he's from. So I
Wow.
live in Vancouver in Canada now. I'm
That's
still working
awesome.
for Turner, though, which is exciting. I was able to transfer with them.
That's awesome. Very
Yeah.
cool. Kelly, thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Booty.
Hey everyone, my name is Alex Booty, which is why you hear Paul calling me Booty. And why
Sorry. Old habits die hard.
So it was funny. I was looking back at podcast descriptions, and the first one up there with me as a co-host was "We check in with Booty." But I graduated in 2017 with a degree in biomedical engineering. I stuck around for another year, did my master's through the progressive degree program in a subset of the biomedical engineering program. And got to hang around with Paul for another year as a graduate associate in the admissions office, which was a ton of fun and really enjoyed that. After school, I moved to Utah for 3 years, working with Edwards Life Sciences as a quality engineer. Maria and I actually had a little bit of overlap. I was in Utah, she was in Irvine, but I was there for about 3 years. And then I moved out to San Francisco, where I'm currently living. I've been out here for about 3.5 years working for Abbott, also working on medical devices. My entire career has been around catheter-based, minimally invasive procedures for heart implants. So I also moved out here for personal reasons. My now wife and I moved out and got engaged shortly after we were out here. So yeah, that's where I'm at now.
That's awesome, Alex. Thanks so, man. Congratulations. Ria.
Amazing. Hi, everyone. It's so good to see everyone's face on here after so long. My name is Ria. I graduated from USC in 2019 with a degree in biomedical engineering, very much following Booty's footsteps, literally to Edwards Life Sciences, where I was for 3 years. I was based in Irvine, working in the rotational program for a year and a half, and then I was focused in our critical care division, working on monitoring systems. I then left, moved to Boston, and got my MBA at Harvard for the last 2 years, and just recently moved back to LA. I'm working for a company called Oak Street Health. They do what's called value-based primary care for older adults, so people on Medicare. And it's been a ton of fun. It's as of last weekend, I actually moved to West Adams, so I live now 15 minutes away from USC as of this past weekend. So it's been a ton of fun rediscovering LA and being back around here, very much in kind of the old stomping grounds. But it's changed a lot in the last 10 years since starting at USC. So yeah, that's me.
Very cool. Thanks, Ria. Audrey.
Hi, everyone. Excited to see a lot of familiar faces too. My name's Audrey Roberts, and I graduated from USC in 2021 with a degree in mechanical engineering. And ever since, I've been working at Microsoft in Seattle. So I'm still here in Redmond today, where I work. I'm glad to be chatting with everyone.
Thank you, Audrey. Cameron.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cameron Cole. I graduated in 2023, so a little young, with a degree in computer science and business administration. I remember when Audrey helped me first join the podcast, and I was very nervous about recording and going on, so it's nice to see some familiar faces here as well. After graduating with the degree in CSBA, I now work for a fintech company called Bloomberg LP. You might have heard of the guy. And I moved out to New York City, so this is 3 hours ahead, very different. Not for life reasons, that's just where the job is. And it's funny, there's a lot of USC alum here, including a fellow VSA who I hang out with occasionally out here. So it's been good, to see everybody and, be back.
Are you keeping names secret, Cameron?
It's Gianna.
Oh, Gianna. Okay.
Yeah, Gianna works out here with me.
It's like, what's going on? They're hiding something. And then Safia, I know our audience knows you if they've been listening, but maybe not everyone else here does. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah, of course. I wish I went first because following that lineup is not the ideal way to start this episode off. But hi, everyone. My name is Safia Patel. I'm a senior here at USC. I'm studying computer science and doing my master's in engineering management. And I'm the 10th. Am I the 10th one, or am I the 2 seasons? So I'm the 9th one, right?
There's multiple people that have done 2 seasons.
Okay, so I'm doing the 10th season, but we'll see where I am in the lineup of co-hosts.
Yeah, so this is the 10th season. Safia, yes, you are the host, and we are missing 2 other hosts. We tried to get everybody together, but we couldn't get everybody. So Maya is not here, who did 2 seasons. And then Cameron subbed in, actually. Cameron came in for like a half a season for Maya, which is so officially still a host for about half a year, but still did a lot of work behind the scenes. And then we also had Emily for a year. And so Emily couldn't be here as well. She's in med school at Harvard, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
She's at Harvard Medical School currently, so it kind of makes sense that she probably can't jump on for a call like this. And then Maya is working at SpaceX. I know Rhea and I both just saw Maya a couple months ago, if I remember correctly. Rhea, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. She's doing great out there.
My sense of time is lost among lots of different things. A couple months ago, 10 years ago, I don't really remember. But
I know.
I want to make sure that you all know that you shouldn't stand on ceremony. I have a very loose outline in my mind of what we'll go over, but you were all hosts, and so feel free to take over at any point as far as things you want to talk about, things you want to ask, things you want to know. I know Safi is going to jump in with lots of questions about kind of how the podcast. I think what we should start with is we go all the way back to the beginning. Kelly, in the beginning, can you remember? Do you remember how did this podcast get started, and what were our conversations at the time? And looking back on it now, like, what were we crazy? What I mean, we've been doing it for 10 years. But did it work? What do you think?
It certainly is working if it's still going strong now. And I assume it just gets better and better each year. So I assume season 1 are the worst episodes in terms of audio quality and other components.
You'd be surprised.
What I remember was, I think during one of our VSA kind of planning sessions, I think, Paul, you had the idea because podcasts were just getting trendy. This would have been like early 2015.
Yeah.
And we were like, should we do a podcast? And then you were like, who wants to host with me? And I was like, sure, I'll do it. And then you bought, a super fancy mic, and we just kind of were like, okay, guess we'll figure out how to use this and what editing software to do. I think our first episode was just me and you just kind of spitballing for 30 minutes, mostly talking about food and like other
At least
random
some
things.
things still stay the same.
Yeah,
Our last
okay.
episode was just 30 minutes of talking about LA Eats.
Yep.
So I guess the podcast has stayed pretty consistent in the past decade.
Food was always a theme of season 1, so I'm glad to see that's been consistent for 10 years
That's
now.
That's a good point. If you think about it, yeah, Sophia, season 1 to season 10, there's one consistency. It's just me talking about food. So that's all that matters.
Yep.
And I'm sure some of your recs have stayed the same, because sometimes you're referencing
Probably.
places that like have
Don't
closed
exist
down
anymore.
at the time. Yeah.
Exactly. What's really funny to me is none of you professionally went into podcasting. I guess that wasn't a career move for any of you.
We didn't pivot? No, not quite.
The Morning Brew rejected my application, and so I'm here now as a software engineer.
Heartbreaking. I do like their podcast a lot.
Yeah, the Morning Brew Daily. I'm like, that could have been me.
It could have been. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have a really good podcast voice. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Cameron's got an incredible voice for hosting. So I mean, I feel like he's got everyone beat there. But
Cameron comes in deep.
Yeah, I got
it. Was funny because when I was talking to Paul about going on, starting to host the podcast, one of his first questions was, "What podcast do you listen to?" And I'm like, I don't listen to podcasts. It was 2015, 2016, right, going into that time frame, and which is crazy now because I don't go a day without listening to at least 2 or 3 different podcasts. So I guess credit to Paul for the vision and helping set the stage, setting a trend. You're kind of rolling your eyes a little bit there, but I mean, it's crazy to look at the numbers. Number of episodes, number of listens. Like, it truly is pretty impressive what it's become.
It's really cool. I mean, it's testament to all of you guys. I mean, I'd be the first to say it, and I say it consistently all the time when people say like, "Oh, your podcast." I'm like, I do very little. I do very, very little other than show up like for 30 minutes a week with Safia or one of you guys in the past, and like we roll out something real fast. But like all of the work on your guys' part, for those of you that are listeners, all the voices you're hearing, while we call them the hosts or the co-hosts, we kind of changed that interchangeably throughout the years. They're essentially executive producing a podcast series, and they're working behind the scenes. The majority of the stuff that they work on, no one ever sees, no one ever hears. It's a lot of wrangling, getting this person to do that. Oh, you forgot. Oh, that's horrible. Do it again. Like all of these things that are coming. And then when you hear like the actual result, where you hear my voice at the beginning of it, that's at the end of right now, currently, Safia like doing like a week or week and a half's worth of work up to that point. And like sometimes Safia in the very last minute, and you could admit it, like sometimes we're like, I don't know if this turned out okay. And we're like kind of faking it on a recording real quick for an intro. And we'll do an intro and then she stitches it together and puts it all out every Sunday. What's our current episode count now? Are we over 400?
No, I think we're almost getting there. I think by next season we'll be at 400.
Next season will be at
We're
400.
around like 370. I have to still do a double count because some episodes have not been counted correctly, but I'm hoping by next season it will be around 400.
Yeah, we're definitely up there. It's a really impressive thing. And currently we're getting, I mean, people always ask like, is it popular? I'm like, in the realm of podcasts, no, it's not. I mean,
But in the realm of university podcasts, I feel like we're not doing
in the realm
terrible
of
job.
university podcasts, and honestly, in the realm of USC podcasts that are not sports podcasts, we kind of kick butt. I mean, like we're one of the ones that's consistent, and we're out there. We get roughly 200 to 500. I know it's a big range. 200 to 500 downloads per week currently. We're getting about 1,000 per 1,000 to 2,000 every month, and then obviously you guys know with the admission cycle we get spikes. Everything around application deadlines, everything around admit deadlines, those things kind of go up and down. And we've all talked about. Whenever we put an episode about admission, it kind of spikes up. And we've got a lot of favorites that are out there. Just so you guys know what we've done in the past, we used to host things on SoundCloud. We got rid of that.
Oh, wow.
And now we're not on SoundCloud. We're now on Buzzsprout, which is our podcast provider, which is
I don't even know what that is, but sounds fancy.
Hey, yeah, it's super technical, but it's really cool. We now have mid-roll ads that we roll out.
No way.
Monetizing?
Wow.
Okay.
Sponsored by.
What a growth.
Sponsored by USC.
But
It's
there
just
are our own
Viterbi
ads.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
cool though. Yeah.
This
But it's
episode
really
is sponsored
cool.
by USC.
Yeah, we roll out pre-rolls and mid-rolls, and we haven't done any post-credit rolls yet. But what you'll do if you go back and like listen to this episode, you'll hear like somewhere around probably like right here, if I pause long enough, because it's all AI based. But it will come in, and all of a sudden you hear the and then it goes off to all of a sudden one of our admission counselors going, "Hey, this is Brooke. Have you thought about visiting campus?" And it goes through this whole like visit campus thing of like what's happening or whatever we're going into. And none of you know who Brooke is, so that's a good part too.
It automatically does it though, so sometimes when I'm listening back to the episode, I like get a jump scare because it's just like Brooke randomly, and I'm like, oh my gosh, who is that? But Brooke has a good podcast voice. We should bring her back more often.
We'll bring her on. We'll bring her on for sure. When you guys go back and you think about your podcast days, the glory days, as it were, what did you take away from it? Was it just something that killed the time in the end? Do you still think about doing something? Has it come back in your professional? Not like you're like hosting a podcast now. I don't think anybody is, but like, what have you taken away from that time to today?
Yeah, I feel like
I have like one fun one and then one like serious one.
Go for
My
it.
like fun takeaway, I think, is that I feel like now if I listen to new podcasts, not the ones that are hosted by professional media networks or anything, I have like an insane standard for audio quality. Part of that is because I feel like we were always listening so carefully to not only the layering of the audio, but like the pitch of like people's voices and like crackling, and you can tell the distance from the mic and all of that.
Right.
So definitely a standard there, which I think is really funny, and a standard for headphones too. But the serious one actually that I do think comes up quite a lot in professional life is asking good questions and like coming up with questions, preparing for interviews in a way that I think is thoughtful, that provokes conversation, that goes a level deeper than you would expect just because you do a little bit of the prep work. Yeah. And I think with podcasting, we learned pretty quickly that winging it wasn't always the best way to get a conversation that you want the right takeaways from. So that's one that I think has really come up quite a lot. And I think podcasting really was the main driver of that part of how I approach meetings and interviews, conversations, etc.
Do you also find the other side of that is true? If you go too rigid on your prep, you don't allow yourself to actually let the stuff breathe. I think we find that in some of our episodes as well, where like that was just like reading a transcript. Where was the conversation?
And you always have to like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go for it.
I was just going to ask if it was the same for all of you when you would have new guests. You always have to do the like check-in to be like, okay, we can cut each other off. It's totally cool. I don't know if you guys had similar experiences when you were hosting the podcast.
Yeah, no, I definitely had that similar experience of like, because not everybody is like, people like want to share their stories and talk, but not everybody is sort of like used to the format of how they're doing it. And so there's a bit of nervousness and a bit of like, if you're interviewing someone who I don't necessarily know, the chemistry might not be there. And so that can be a little difficult. There's all the times where in the recording, there's so many places on the cutting room floor where I've said, Chop, we can edit this out if you want to say that again, or if you need to catch your breath, and then let's resume it and I'll clap and then we'll start over. So it's been like it has had happened. I was also gonna say, I feel like one of the other things that I carried through was really like knowing who your audience is and like tailoring the message and the topics about like who that is. Because I think that as a student, you'll get caught up in a completely different set of things to talk about or things to think of about college life. That sometimes when the actual like audience of the podcast might be thinking of something very different, whether that's like acronyms and like talking about the way things work, or like you're thinking about like very like specific things, and the audience is thinking about more of a higher level or broader overview. And so I feel like on the podcast, that was very important to tailor the message. But then in work, I've been talking to someone who maybe doesn't know the engineering terms, but they need a broad level overview. How do you step back from that? It's like a very good transferable skill from the podcast to the workplace.
That's cool. Definitely.
Yeah, when Ria said asking good questions, I had the same thought in my mind. I think I always love, my favorite podcast is Fresh Air's NPR podcast with Terry Gross. And I think I'm always so impressed when I listen to them, and she like really makes her guest feel special and comfortable with her and asking great questions. And I think like having that air about you and that skill can get you so far, like at work and relationships. And like, we all want to be that person, right? So
Totally.
that part of that's asking good questions, part of that's listening, part of that's like actually caring about what you're talking about. And I think I definitely took that away.
I also am struck, I'm remembering now that we kind of have a division in this conversation of Alex and Ria and Kelly and Audrey did all of this in person, and Cameron and Safia, we've done every conversation over Zoom.
Oh, interesting.
I did half and half.
You did half, Audrey, that's right. You were in it. Can you remember? So you were there during COVID, and we had to flip and make the transition. Do you remember that time and how we went through that?
Hi there, it's Brooke, one of your Viterbi admission counselors with your mid-podcast message. I want to tell you about our year-round on-campus Visit Viterbi experiences. They're the best way to get to know more about our Viterbi programs. It's a 90-minute session focused on first-year applicants, and it includes an overview of our academic programs and admission process. It's led by one of our very own USC Viterbi admission counselors. So if you'd like to join us on campus, we would love to meet you. Please visit viterbi.link/events. That's VITERBI.link/events to reserve your Visit Viterbi experience. Now back to the podcast.
Not fully, but I think I definitely remember
blocking it all out is a horrible bad dream.
I think I remember us kind of thinking like, oh my gosh, how are we going to pivot this? Like, do we want to keep going? What's the cadence, etc. And I remember pivoting to Zoom and working through that. And like in some ways it was easier, and in some ways it was harder, because before I was also thinking about one of the memories, like we had this like closet with all with all of our stuff that we would record in. I don't know if you still have it, but it was.
Come back to that. We have to come back. Let's talk about that.
So I remember like going there, and there's like this old Mac desktop we would use, and then all this recording equipment, and like this bag we would carry around, and that was sort of cumbersome. I remember like biking on my beach cruiser with this like slinged bag of podcast equipment.
Yeah.
So I remember that pivot, and that maybe good, maybe bad. And then I think, I think it was like a crazy time where there was like whiplash and like what matters to people, right?
Yeah.
So
it was interesting. I remember my big memory was just a lot of regret, because it was that year that, and Audrey, you may remember this, and maybe no one else really knows this because you're the only one that saw the two sides of it. But that was when I just purchased that entire studio recording equipment.
Oh yeah.
Remember, we had like a big board with like sound effect buttons and everything. Like we were turning my office into like a DJ booth, and we had like 4 big like standoff microphones like set up for interviews around the office. Because up until that point, we were kind of like cobbling stuff together. Like Booty, I remember we would like kind of share that one Blue Yeti microphone and kind of go back and forth on some stuff.
That's what I wanted to ask is like, how has it changed in like the setup? Because you would sit at your desk,
Yeah.
I would sit off to the side in a chair and kind of basically have the controller almost in my lap.
Because you were working off of that Zoom. It was called Zoom, which is weird. It's a Zoom controller, I think.
Yeah. And it had like a little connection there. And my worst memory was there was an episode, I can't remember when it was. I didn't hit record for about 20 minutes. And I just remember seeing that, looking down, looking over at Paul, and he just knew right away something was wrong.
You looked at me like someone
I
just died.
Remember that setup where
you looked at me like someone just died.
Sitting right there next to the desk, just kind of squished in the little walkway between where your desk extended and the wall. And then we had some faculty members sitting there, and I was just, but that whole setup to me was just it was rudimentary. We made it work. It was great, but
do you remember
I was curious how things have changed.
Do you remember who it was?
I don't. I remember go back and listen to an episode where, the first couple minutes sound a little bit rough.
We got to go back, because I do remember that moment where we're like, all right, sir, I'm sorry. We're going to start that whole thing all over again. Let's forget that we did any of that, and we're going to do it. I think it was a very forgiving one, if that made sense. But what's super funny about that, and I'm trying to remember our topics now, but we're overlapping this. This is super funny, regardless of technology. Safi, do you want to tell them a quick story?
Yeah, the same thing happened to us. So even with the
like a couple weeks ago
we have now, it happened this season. Earlier this semester, or I think it was the end of last semester, we went through about a 45-minute intro outro, and by the end of it, the co-host went to press the stop recording button and she couldn't find it, and we realized that she hadn't been recording the entire time. It might have been for the better, because we talked about some interesting stuff.
It got weird.
It was near Halloween. We were talking about like horror movies and just a lot of sadist stuff. It was weird. I think it's for the better. But even with the setup we have now, mishaps happen all the time. I don't know if there's any worse horror stories that any of you had while recording a podcast.
So let's get to Booty's question real quick, and then we'll get into other horror stories. But we started with, and I think, Kelly, this is what we bought with you, which was like that little like carrier Zoom recorder, which had like 4-way mics on it, and then we attached like lavalier mics to it. Rhea, I think you used it as well, and I think you started with that, Audrey, right?
Yes,
like that little carrier. And then what was cool in the beginning is we made it like a mobile thing, and we went out and like did like man on the street interviews every once in a while, and we still talk about that to this day. And we had these little recording things, and then we went to like this like Blue Yeti mic, and we tried to use that and hook it into that, and everybody had different mics. We went to Audrey's year, and I said, this is ridiculous. We're going to get something serious. So I have this like, and it's still in my office. It's a giant suitcase, when you like Iron Man style, and you open it up and you take out the recording studio and you set up all the microphones with these Rode podcast microphones. It records to it, or records to your laptop. Safi, that's there if you ever want to use it. We went to COVID to Zoom, and then we kind of did it kind of just, just ad hoc. And then after a while, we kind of made it our official stuff, and we bought some microphones and sets and stuff like that. We have some recording software on the back end that kind of stitches it all together a little bit more, masters it a little bit more easier through our podcast service. So it makes it, technically the setup's easier. I think there's still some of the same issues with editing. And as you can tell, the mistakes still happen. The issues the issues are still persistent. But we haven't done an in-person recording in a while. We did a man on the street recording.
Yeah, for admission around move-in time.
Around move-in time with parents. We did another one of those, which was pretty cool. But no one wanted to talk. It was awkward.
I was thinking to do an in-person one just for the thrill of it. Bring it back.
Yeah, I think we have to.
I think we do. We have to go dust off that deck and see if it's working. And now my office is essentially like a conference room. Like I don't have any of the same furniture that any of you ever saw before. So now I just have like a big table in my office. And so it would work a lot easier. He wouldn't be like hunched around my actual desk, which is good, because that was always an awkward setup no matter who was in there. But Safi, you were asking about awkward or horror stories that came up?
I've had my fair share. I feel like I hide them from Paul unless they happen directly in front of him.
Well, now I want to know more.
Just for my own pride. But are there any that you experienced that really stuck out from your time as a host? Maybe you were all better off as
I don't know
hosts
if this
than
is
I
a horror
was.
story, but I just remember there was one podcast we did, Paul, with I think his name was Max. It was like a cyber security guy. I think he was some sort of professor, and he was going all in on like hacking and how basically the whole world was screwed. And this was 2015 before hacking even got super
Joseph Greenfield.
sophisticated.
Joseph
But
Greenfield, yeah.
yeah, and then we were just both of us were speechless the whole time and just spooked. So I feel like the episode was just him talking and us just like jaws down, just like, what?
So everybody has your personal data. Don't even try.
Yeah.
Like you're screwed.
Like you're done. You're already done for. And we were like, oh, okay, great.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I already gave mine, but
Yeah, you already gave yours. The recording mishap.
I feel like that's a common one. I feel like also sometimes if you bring a new guest, was it ever awkward? I know Kelly, you already mentioned like sometimes you don't know what to say, especially if they're talking about stuff that's not in your realm. But did you ever have like awkward lapses with people? How was it navigating all of that, especially in your earlier time in the podcast?
I think the first season was pretty professor heavy. So they were very like technical on what they would talk about. And maybe not as like loose and willing to improv. So I felt those ones would get kind of stiff, and sometimes I honestly would have no clue what they were talking about if it was a section I wasn't familiar with. But I think the student ones, a lot of times even early on, it was just people I knew we would bring in and kind of do student orgs, and those ones maybe were easier to get people to loosen up because they're talking about, they're a student, but they're talking about something they're passionate about. Maybe not as technical. But I'm sure you guys do crazy things now, all sorts of different series and
you'd be surprised. It's relatively the same.
Yeah, still professors, student groups.
It's more, student driven. I think the one shift is a couple years back, I started bringing alumni back in as individual episodes because, frankly, it was more fun than a lot of the previous ones that we did. And it was great to connect with everybody and kind of get that sense of like, I used to be a student here and this is my story and this is what I do now, which we'll pivot to in a minute. But the majority, the meat and potatoes of the podcast is really Safia grabbing friends and grabbing other VSAs to start, curating their own episodes and topics that they're interested in. And then she and I meet and go over, what have we not talked about in a while? Because we've all talked about this. I don't think anyone listens to the podcast for more than when they're applying, right? So like we have a new audience every 9 months if it goes that way. And so it's not like, well, we did that. There's a couple of times I think I've had conversations with a few of you like, well, we've done that episode 3 years ago. I'm like, no one's listening to that one. It's like, don't worry about it. Like, let's just make a new one. And there's new people in it and they're doing new things. So we take those topics and kind of go back on it. But we try to be a little more creative with some topics. We do some round robin conversations. I think a lot of times, Safia, it's getting like a bunch of people around one microphone and just chatting it up about a certain topic. That's happened a lot recently.
Yeah, I feel like that's what the high school students like most. Like my episode where I had The Bachelor in the title got so many views compared to like any other episode I've ever done. So I feel like their priorities have shifted a little bit in the coming years.
We also now put the podcast. It's got all the podcast feeds. But recently this year we also are automatically feeding it into YouTube. And so we have a separate amount of listeners that are going through the YouTube channel. I think because they're YouTube kind of surfing, they don't really stay for as long, but we are getting some different hits there, which is a new change.
I feel like all podcasts nowadays have a video version to go along with it.
But we haven't done the video yet. We're just throwing the audio up.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I think the videos, I'm not entirely there yet. I think some people would be weird that they were being recorded, but well, we'll go from there. Outside of the podcast, when you guys think back on your time at USC, I know Cameron, it was a very long time ago, but but for all of you, when you think about your time at USC, what are some of the first things that come to mind as far as like, I don't know, your day-to-day activity or is that still happening? Is that still around, or what your involvements were? How do you look back on your time?
Think about the sun.
The sun.
lot.
Oh, when you're in Redmond,
Fondly.
Washington, you think about yeah, absolutely. Like when you're going to see the
Maybe.
sun again. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Kelly feels that way in
Yup, now
Vancouver
I do, yes.
now.
Is
Gosh,
it
I had it
as
so
bad
good.
is it as bad as everybody talks about? The idea of just constant gray, constant rain.
Mhm.
I mean, I've only been here about 1 year now. I didn't think it was as bad as I thought. It's not great. You definitely don't see the sun, but I also was told this winter was a mild one, so maybe next year I'll have a different answer.
I think the first year I lived here was the worst that I've experienced, where it was like really rainy. And otherwise, I think it's gray. So, I mean, it's sort of tough when it's like you have very few hours of daylight and then they're all gray. But the flip side is it's really pretty. It's green.
Yeah.
Your skin feels good. Your hair feels good. So whenever I complain, my mom just goes, just think of what you're going to look like when you're 80 with no sun. Thank you. But, yeah, Domini and I lived together actually the first year I lived here
Oh,
in
really?
Seattle.
Wow, very
Yeah.
cool.
And so that Domini's from Hawaii.
Yeah.
And both of us moving from LA. It was a good transition period.
But you're originally from like Denver, correct? If I'm remembering that
Yeah.
correctly. So
Yeah.
Denver to LA to Redmond. I mean, that's kind of somewhat of an interesting trifecta.
And I was Denver to LA to Vancouver.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Oh, what a small world.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like Denver and Seattle are pretty similar cities.
Yeah.
I agree.
Except,
Yeah.
yeah, except the weather is really different, but I think it's a similar size city and like activities similar. And then I also think all three of those places for me have sort of like a West Coast culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely the weather is a big change.
Yes, but we can
Talking
talk about
about,
more
like-
exciting things than that.
Yeah, talking about kind of like the divide. Like Kelly and I were there when the old University Village
Oh,
was still
yep.
there.
Wow.
Like the
old
UV
UV,
with
the OG
with the
UV.
movie theater,
With
the
yep.
dollar store,
The
I can't remember what it
Denny's.
was called.
Radio Shack, Denny's,
The
Wendy's.
Denny's. There
Yep.
was a Jamaican food place that was incredible.
What was the grocery store called?
Superior.
Superior, yep.
Superior.
The 3-2. Back in the day, it was the 3-2. If I really
there
date
was,
myself, it's the 3-2.
And then the frozen yogurt place, right? And it was just so
Oh, 21
like,
Choices. Yeah.
yeah, 21
Oh,
Choices.
Sandwich
So,
Island.
like,
Sandwich Island inside the food court. That not a thing
Yeah,
anymore? Am I really dating myself there?
No, the food court was there, but yeah.
Mongolian barbecue inside the food
Yes.
court?
Yeah.
so
Have you seen the new village?
so my graduate year was the first year that the new village was open, and so it was still getting up to speed, figuring everything out, like a lot of new vendors going in and out. But that was super interesting to see that flip, because they flipped it over a summer. But now anytime I go back, it seems like that is a hub, if not the hub.
It's
on campus, even though it's across the street.
It's an extension of it is campus.
That's crazy.
Which is weird to think that way, but yeah, it is. Because Safia, I mean, do you consider the village different than campus?
I think from an academic sense, yes, just because I feel like once I leave campus, it's like the village seems like it has more like sunlight there for some reason than campus. And I feel like that's, yeah, and I think it's where people go when they want to go Target, go to Trader Joe's, grab their matcha from Dulce. All those things.
You're speaking a weird language to these guys. That's my
I know, I
favorite
saw
part
big
about this.
faces.
We used to take the train to go to Trader Joe's, like down to Culver City. We'd hop on the Expo line, or we'd take make someone drive to Target in downtown.
Yeah, the students here are spoiled nowadays. They just walk in between their classes to grab Trader Joe's. But I feel like I know some students that hang out in the village more than campus, so I would still consider it an extension of USC.
Yeah, that was me. I hung out in the village a lot. Like you could just you could like it's the perfect place to rent to someone. You go get your blueberry matcha latte from Dulce. You sit outside with your laptop and you face the village, and you won't get any work done because you'll pass by every person you've ever known when you're trying to do work. It's like that is the campus. Like some people ask like, oh, like where's the student center? And I'm like, it's not really a building. It's more of a vibe in a place that people congregate, like less of a building.
This is an interesting question then for our more seasoned podcast episode co-host here. Where was the student hangout? Like where would everybody hang out? Where was the hub?
I mean, not by choice. I spent a lot of time in CAP, which is like the civil engineering
Civil
building,
engineering,
which is
yeah, life,
I think
yeah.
still depressing. That building is sad. I hope they fix it one day. So I spent too much time in that building. Otherwise, I feel like we spent more time kind of off campus in our like off campus housing.
Yeah, just living in apartments and stuff nearby.
Yeah, as far as campus goes, I feel like I had a lot of friends across a lot of different engineering disciplines. So RTH was the spot. Banh mi's all the time.
Love the banh mi's.
The Indian food. I hope that those are still there because those both were incredible.
The Indian food.
Sad
I
shrug
don't know
from
if the
Paul.
banh mi's are there.
Wait,
the banh mi's were good, and they were the cheapest thing too you could get.
Yeah, what does the shrug mean, Paul?
I don't know the answer. That's what the shrug means.
I feel like RTH has turned into more just a corporate. Like students don't really hang out there anymore.
Oh my gosh,
it was like this because that was where the admission office was. So all the VSAs we were going there, and then my extra year as a grad associate, like I'd be working in the office, and then I'd pop out, get lunch, and then the other place was Campus Center, right? Which kind of makes sense, Campus Center. But that was people would sit down, play at the piano, and go get lemonade or seeds. And that was kind of like the central spot where you'd see people. It wasn't quite as open as the village, but I'd say those were the two spots. But I really hope that those banh mi's are still around.
I love the banh mi's. I hope so too. Sounds like no though.
I think that they are, but
they've gone down in quality.
No, well, you guys don't know this. Like I'm mostly remote now. Like I'm barely there. I'm not in the office right now. Like,
I guess, but.
Couldn't tell from the background.
And like I'll be there. I was there yesterday. I will be there tomorrow, but I'm like in and out. Like it's post-COVID. It's a different. It's not negative. It's just a different vibe. And RTH Safia back in the day, I lament about this all the time, but I have someone now. I have people now I can talk about. Is like RTH was like a train station. Like everyone was running through RTH.
Yeah,
everyone was through RTH.
Yeah.
And
I mentioned RTH to someone the other day and they didn't know where it was.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's like weird because like I mean to be fair, like a lot of students like don't really have like a need to go because there's like it's only freshman academy. Like freshman academy coaches, we try to make RTH cool, and then you have like no reason to go there unless you're maybe going to EB or like something else behind it. Most people just go around it.
Yeah.
So
it's a really interesting change because we used to like centralized advising in our office, or now our office is just admission. We don't have any advisors in our office, and so it's a very different place. We run our like tours and stuff and our info sessions through there, but we're also like very specific about the time. Come in, check in, get your stuff, get you out. But it's not. I was telling somebody recently. Back in the day, if something was happening and I'm like, I need a VSA, I would literally just walk out into the hallway. I'd go into the cafe. I'd be like, Audrey, hey, do you got like 5 minutes? And like, then I grab you and like, come over here. I need you to talk to somebody real quick. And that like, also that like visit mentality of people just stopping by, that also doesn't happen anymore because we've created very structured visit programs, which makes it a lot more, makes it more sensible these days. So we're not like constantly like struggling to do something, which is different. So it's good. It's all good stuff. But my point I was in the cafe yesterday because I forgot to bring lunch and I was like just disappointed. I was like, this used to be so fun. This used to be like so cool. And now I'm like, I don't know anybody.
You should bring that back. We should make RTH pop in again.
Yeah. Do it.
It's so funny. I went back to USC for homecoming this past year because it was our like 5-year reunion-ish. And RTH was so much of the hub that me and like several of my other friends that were all Viterbi grads, we all went and took like pictures outside of it during homecoming. Like that was the spot that we all decided that we wanted to go to. So I have pictures of me and my like old VSA friends all hanging out in front of RTH from last fall because we were like, oh, this was the spot.
That's cool. That's very
Are there
cool.
any other spots on campus that you like had to visit, or like study spots that you guys would go to all the time? Because I want to see how much they've changed in the last couple of years.
I feel like for me, so I started at USC the year the Village opened, so definitely the Village. I get confused because okay, in Seattle there's UW's Village, which is also the Village. So hopefully I'm not miscalling anything. But the University Village, the Village. I feel like RTH was a big one. Like Sal was a big one. If
Interesting.
that still is.
Cameron's disapproval.
Wow.
What else? The architecture library.
Yeah.
What was the Seaver Science Library? I think that was just me who liked that one, but it was quiet.
What's the architecture library? What are you referring to?
I know what you're talking about. I spent a lot of time in Watt Hall because of building science, but yeah, there's a library in there too, I think. I think Watt Hall, is that what it's called?
It's when you have to like go into the basement and then it kind of has like a skylight.
Yeah.
Got it.
That one's a cool vibe.
That one's
it's
really nice, but I feel like not many students know about it. I study there a lot and I mentioned it to someone on campus, and again they're like, why do you even venture? I think everyone just kind of views that corner of campus as like a no territory zone unless you're in Viterbi. So it's interesting that it was so much more popular back in the day.
I think it's just different that there was like a constant presence, and I think the presence is now just spread out more. I think like the Village contributed to that. I think that campus, like people find themselves in pockets now, and there used to be kind of just like a trend. And then we're not helping by like adding our new building. Like I don't know if you guys have checked out Ginsburg Hall yet, but there's now it's like there's a much because the same vibe that used to be a Tudor Hall is now shifting over there because it's just got a lot of open spaces, a lot of study areas. Indoor study areas, outdoor study areas, is kind of like a whole different vibe. So it's interesting. Things change all the time. That's kind of the thing that's really fascinating about this whole process. Do you all remember?
Well, is that the building that we talked to someone about? Did we do an interview about that building?
Probably.
It was like $150 million gift that had just come through, a to be named building with like makerspace and all of that.
So that's an interesting question. Now you're bringing back did we do a facilities dean interview? Is that what we did?
I think her name was Linda?
Linda Rock. Wow, I'm glad you have a memory.
Yes.
Man.
Wow, that's very impressive.
You got an amazing memory. I forgot we interviewed her, and she did bring up that concept that we're going to put it in a new building. And I think that building and those concepts morphed into two different things, because this is Ginsburg Hall, computer science focused. And then and what you may have been working on was, or what that episode may have been talking about, was the Baum Family Maker Center, which is a different building. And if you guys haven't seen that, that was taking, who said Seaver Science Library?
Audrey? Yeah.
Audrey. It's not there anymore.
That was like at the very end of when I was there, but it was sort of COVID. I think that technically opened my senior year, maybe.
Yeah, that was like right in the process of us going into there. So they basically gutted the library out and put in a makerspace, and it's like huge, 1,500 square feet, something like that. And it goes over like 3 or 4 different large rooms, wood shop, machine shop. All the different student organizations, design teams have their own space to do stuff in. Kelly, Concrete Canoe, and Steel Bridge, they're all in there. And
They're not in the cap basement anymore?
No, they're not in cap. No, they're not in cap at all. We have, because they're not in the sub basement, which is the basement inside of a basement. They have
a depressing place, but yeah, only space we had.
They see sunlight now. They can like open the garage and like open it to the courtyard area too. Like
you can see sunlight. The sub basement had an outdoor space too.
Though.
It did.
Yeah, but like
it was a pit.
No.
It was a pit that was underground, but it was still sunlight. Yeah, but this one now it's all together. So like the concept is that the teams can all work together, and so like the Concrete Canoe team, the Steel Bridge team, they're right next to a recumbent vehicle design team, Chemi car team, the Formula Electric race car team, and then you go across the shop over there, and there's the combustion engine team, and we've got ADT may or may not be there, and then you've got 3D printing and kind of more of the more futuristic fabrication stuff over on that side. 3D4E is in there as well, and so they can all share spaces and look and work with each other and share resources. And we got a full staff in there that helps support them, and it's a very different vibe now. The teams used to be kind of on their own in their own spaces, and now we try to pull as much together as humanly possible. So that's really cool. So yeah, I think that was the makerspace stuff, Booty. That was but a good memory. I forgot about that. We actually we had we had some cutting edge information at the time, like that was released far before anyone else talked about it.
It was the to be named, and I was like, oh, I know that I'm not going to see this anytime soon. So I thought maybe that was the picture.
Well, and then ever since that makerspace opened up, biomedical engineering for you, Alex, opened up their own makerspace. And so Rhea, for you as well, they opened up their own makerspace, and now they have their own space over in DRB that they're kind of fleshing out and expanding on, which is really cool. And so that's, speaking of things, if you guys might remember, Explore USC is coming up next month. And so I was just looking at what BME is going to do, and like one of their tour elements for BME is they're going to bring everybody through their new BME makerspace and show off all the stuff that they're going to be doing over there, which is pretty cool. Do you guys remember certain stories of Explore USC working with newly admitted students? This episode's going to come out essentially a week before we admit everybody for a regular decision. And so this is likely going to be listened to by newly admitted students. Experiences on helping, showing kids around what this process goes, choosing USC, the questions you guys had, how you helped others, opening up as broadly as possible.
So two things that I think were relatively new around my time that we started doing were Explore After Dark, which was a huge hit, where we had all the admitted students. We had a space, I can't remember, it was next to Parkside, like in one of their open spaces, and like you do, I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was like a dance, one of those dance video games. And so we
Dance Dance Revolution.
It wasn't Dance Dance Revolution. No? It's the one that has it's like the camera, and you're like trying to line up your body movements. And so we just had Just Dance or something like that. Yeah. And so we just had a bunch of high school seniors just kind of just flailing around, just and playing some board games and stuff. But it was really cool to have them get to know each other. And I know that there are two people specifically I'm thinking of that met at Explore, which were Celeste and Sienna, who were both VSAs, and they met at Explore After Dark, and both were in the process of making a decision between several schools. And I think that being able to see the community that they could have at USC was really important to them. And then I think the other thing that's really funny is that we started doing is we were doing recap videos, and we would have all the VSAs go around taking videos and pictures for their Snapchats, and we would send them to like a VSA Snapchat, and we were saving them. So I would save them, and I have these videos from lab tours or from host meetup, matchup, all of that. And I don't use Snapchat a lot anymore, but you get the every year, like this on this day 10 years ago, the memories. And it's just so funny to go back and see that, and some of the stuff that we were just these most random videos, us like getting so crazy in such like it's definitely an interesting vibe, because you're a high school senior coming in, and you're trying to bring the energy as like a VSA, and you just have no idea what's going on. So that's always a really funny thing to see. And I think Betty was the one who was putting together a lot of those recap videos, and we were just sending Snapchats.
We're gonna have to do that again, Safi.
Yeah, I think we need to take some inspiration from the past. That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll turn them into reels, or we'll do them as stories on Instagram, and we'll get the recaps of the day, because it's a legit thing that we used to do that was super cool, and send them out to everybody.
I remember from Explore USC, there were always like two big sessions. One was in the morning, and then one was in the afternoon. And everyone would go to the morning one, and that one would always be packed. Like people couldn't fit inside.
Oh, this is the open house on the weekend. Yeah, that one, right?
Yeah, and then it was like the trick was to go to the afternoon one, but none of the parents and students would ever go to that one. They'd always want to go to the morning one because they think, oh, it's the big session. I got to go in the morning. So it'd be like kind of corral these people in an auditorium. Then we had to cut people off, be like, sorry, there's no more room anymore. Come back to the afternoon one. And then the
Yeah.
afternoon one would always be pretty empty.
We're about
Yeah.
to do that again. We're about to have a Sunday event where I know the amount of people that we have will not fit in the room that we're about to put them in. And so we're going to tell them, we're going to assign them a track. You got cardinal track, you got gold track, like you're at a conference. And so the cardinal track does this in the morning and this in the afternoon, and the gold track does that. So we're going to about to sign that. But yeah, we are leading that session inside Town and Gown this year.
Oh, that's
So
a
Nice.
big one.
filling that whole space with seats. It's like 750 seats. It's huge.
Man, definitely need it. Because I remember I don't know if it was like fall 21 or spring 2022, like when you had first done it. And I remember like coming and we're like, okay, we have to get everyone from wherever the main orientation was. And you're going to like by Tommy Trojan. And there is a sea of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, it couldn't be this many people. And there was like that many people. Like I remember vividly, like the funny thing was that Alex Rennie was on like the Spirit Leader Squad.
Yeah.
I had to basically spirit squat her on my shoulders so that way someone could see, so that way she could shout and say, if you are here for the engineering school, please follow us. So there's someone who's like now 8 feet tall to follow because it was that many people.
I mean,
and like
to be fair, Alex is only 4 feet tall. So like it was.
so like the 4, but cut it in 2 and I'm 6. So it's about accurate.
Yeah.
But it was just an insane amount of people. And I didn't realize I'm like all of these people want to hear like about student life at Viterbi. I mean, it was absolutely nuts. Like I had never seen that many people, and you're trying to table and like talk to different people after all the sessions, and it was nuts. But that just seeing that vision of that many people there just was in shock. I like couldn't believe it.
Yeah. You guys did a lot of work. Do you remember ultimately, like in a sentence, if you can encapsulate it into a sentence, why you chose USC over other schools? Can you think back that far to senior year in high school? It's March and April in senior year in high school. You've got admission decisions to the schools you've been admitted to, including USC. And how did you make that choice?
For me, I guess I can go first.
Yeah.
I was looking at a lot of engineering schools, and a lot of those were very technical places where like they only really had engineering. And what I really liked about USC is I felt I could get that well-rounded experience, and I could certainly do engineering and engineering clubs, but do other things that I enjoyed as well. So like hockey, that was something that was big for me.
I
I
forgot
still
about
play
hockey.
hockey. I'm still doing
Yeah.
that all these years later. So that was my kind of non-engineering activity that I was able to still do at USC.
I forgot about that. You and all your pads playing hockey and like killing it on the ice. That's amazing. Because
Yeah.
you guys used to play down in Anaheim. Is that right? Do I have that
We
right?
played in like Lakewood area.
Lakewood.
But
Okay. Sorry.
yeah, the hockey team's still going strong, which is cool.
Very
And hockey
cool.
here in Canada is even better, leveled
I
up
bet.
from
I
LA,
bet.
but yeah.
I bet.
Yeah, I think the similar for me, just visiting USC and learning more about it, like I was really drawn to be like a corporate word, the culture. I think
Sure.
so I remember some advice I got during the admissions process was like engineering's the same everywhere, right? Like math and physics, those things don't change. Like oftentimes you're using the same textbook school to school. So it's kind of the other stuff that counts. And I think USC, like certainly I can say as a student, my peers, like that's so important. And I felt like I made like lifelong friends that I rely on like personally, professionally still today. And I think also as an engineering program, engineers learn how to communicate at USC, which is so important. And I don't think that's true everywhere. So I think those sorts of things, like an emphasis on like how do we interact with people? How do we present our work? How do we have fun? Like those things I saw and mattered. And definitely I felt like I got those things at USC. So
And you're noticing the difference in the corporate world.
yeah, totally. I think like for good or bad, for sure. But I think the biggest challenges at work are always like, how do we show what we're doing? How do we communicate this question accurately? And those things, whether they're as technical as like, what's the right way to graph this data? Like what we were kind of learning in like mech ops, for instance, for any mechanical engineers out there, to just like, how do I clearly convey technical information? Like that's hard, right? And and I struggle with it. Everyone struggles with it, but I do think I got some practice doing that at USC for sure.
I want to jump because Cameron, I saw you like effusively nodding to a lot of this stuff.
I couldn't agree more. Because like I now do a bit of like recruiting for my company. So I've gone to USC a little bit. I'm actually going next month. We're doing
cool.
an event there. So I'll pop by the office if anyone's in to say hello. But I could not agree more with that. And I feel like not like communication, also just like knowing how to work with other people is something that I didn't realize that other places didn't do. Not to talk badly, but I just didn't realize that. And there's so many people I work with that ask them like, yeah, like, and they like have an experience like working like in a group or like even working in an assignment like in a project where the project wasn't clearly delineated as this is a group project, but just like, hey, like even though this isn't clearly a group project, we need to work together for it. And that feels like a foreign concept to some folks. And so like having like discussions about like design and architecture, like how you're going to build something, like those things haven't like they happened a lot at USC. I remember like talking about them and like we would like sometimes get in an argument about like, why our work is better than others. I remember doing this in like my intro to Mechie in my algorithms class and like across the place. But other places like just don't have that. Like they weren't allowed to work together. And I've asked like, you didn't have groups, they say, oh, we weren't allowed to work together. And that kind of blows my mind as someone who I feel like that was the basis of what made like my engineering experience like not only possible to get through, but also just made me feel more confident in what I was doing. And so I I feel really good that USC has that. And I feel kind of bad for the folks who miss out on it. Just because I feel like that's such a differentiator. And again, not like it can happen other places, but I just feel like that's what made it for me. Because other places like I wanted to collaborate and like I wanted to work with other people. And like I just saw that the best at USC.
Rhea, anything else to add here as far as why you came to USC?
Yeah, and I've been reflecting a lot on all of your answers. I mean, they all resonate. What's really interesting is that I have a twin brother and we were in the same exact position and we chose differently. So it's been really interesting to kind of like see how our different personal and professional trajectories have been shaped by a decision like kind of picking where we ended up going to school. So I chose USC to do biomedical engineering. My brother went to Caltech to study computer science. And now kind of I've gone one direction and my brother is about to finish his PhD in computer science. But one of the things that I think I really pulled away from USC, and it was hard to get a full sense of this when I was actually exploring schools. I think it was really just like a vibe and like a feeling of belonging while I was at Explore and making that decision. But now looking back on it, what really mattered to me was diversity of the people around me in terms of interest, in terms of background, in terms of how they like to spend their time. People that were really intellectually curious in a lot of different ways, whether that was they were really passionate about engineering or they were really passionate about music. You got an opportunity to meet all of those different people, no matter where you were at USC, which I found really special. And then a lot of people were drawn to the city of LA. And I think there was a big culture around like going out into LA and experiencing what the city had to offer. And for me, that opened my eyes. I grew up in a suburb in the Bay Area, and being able to access a city like LA that has so much energy and like so many different types of communities was really eye-opening, and that really fundamentally changed the trajectory of how my life has gone. So it's hard to put into words, but I think it is one of the decisions that really fundamentally shifted how I ended up building my life following, and is one of the reasons I ended up moving back to the area too, because I think there's a lot of growth that I experienced in the city, and USC was a huge part of that.
That's great. Alex, I know you've been waiting patiently over there. Is there anything different that you wanted to add on to this?
I mean, nothing groundbreaking. I think just to wrap it up, it's got the full package, and I believe that's what I said in my Explore interview. Is I just think that USC has the full package. What everyone has said, from academics to being able to explore LA and everything in between. I still don't think there's a better place.
Very cool.
Go ahead.
Safi, go please.
Once you got to USC itself, what kind of drew you to being for context to to the audience, VSA stands for Viterbi Student Ambassadors. What drew you to being a VSA and to even joining the podcast to begin with? Because I know it definitely wasn't what I envisioned when I first got to school here. So I just want to hear your stories.
I think for me, so Bria
That's right.
interviewed me for a USC scholarship. And I like always stayed in touch with her and still variously intermittently do. And so I think she kind of drew me to VSA. It's like really like this is a great group of people. And then for the podcast, Rhea, that's what got me into that. So so I feel like it's the web of people, right?
There's a lot of generational arm twisting.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like go get her, pull her in.
Yeah.
I think most people are going to have a very similar answer. I don't know if you guys see a lot of nodding, but Safia, I'm pretty sure that's how you got pulled in too. I think Maya and I were like, go get Safia.
I think I did like one episode and then Maya threw one at me last minute and I was like, okay, sure. And then she liked it. And then like 2 weeks later, they're like, you want to be the host? And I was like, what? What's going on?
Well, if you think about it, Safia, you're doing the same thing right now with someone else, right? Like,
Yeah,
you know
I
what
am.
you're doing. We know who that is. They don't know who they are yet, but we know what we're doing with them.
Hopefully it works
I feel
out.
like I feel like my experience was like unique in it because I think like because this was my senior year and like I hadn't been on the podcast team at all. I think I was working on like live
You
chats on
saved
Instagram or
it.
something random.
You saved it, buddy. You did.
And I forget who reached out and they were like, do you want to do this? You made a lot of episodes. And I'm like, I guess why not? Because I had been on the podcast for like 2 seasons. I was like, I'll take a break. And then just kind of came out of nowhere. But yeah, and I remember like just wanting to join. But yeah, like Mark Parent got me involved. And then when I was recording episodes with Audrey, that's how I got started. So yeah, we call them generational. But yeah, that was my thing. It was the least like anticipated host, but it was a good time.
Do you guys track your genealogy through other VSAs? Like the who brought you in and then who they brought in, and then you can keep going all the way back?
Kelly, who was yours?
I'm trying to remember. I mean, I was a freshman academy coach first. I did that my sophomore year. And I feel like from doing that experience, I was then interested in doing VSA. And there was a lot of overlap between freshman academy and VSA. So then I started doing VSA my junior year. And then the podcast started my senior year. And then I remember we had a audition for who would be season 2 hosts. And we interviewed 3 people. But I think we knew it was always going to be Booty. But we still went through the process of like, okay, we'll do these interviews. And then obviously it had to be Booty.
We actually had an episode with Bria.
Bria was one, and then
last year.
Oh, yeah.
There was one other person. Yeah, there was 3, right?
Vincent? Does that ring a bell?
Vincent. Oh my gosh. Blast from the past.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was between Bria and Alex. And we kind of went through this whole process. And like then Bria worked as a graduate assistant for a while. So then we have this other genealogy of graduate assistants, like people who became VSAs and then they stayed for graduate school and then worked in our office part-time-ish. I don't remember, Alex. I think you were doing like 20 hours a week or something like that. And then Alex, you traveled with us, right? Did you travel?
Yeah, I did. I'm originally from Phoenix, and so we had an event in Phoenix, and Paul was like, "You want to go?" I'm like, "Yep, I'll take a trip home midweek," and did an event there, and that was a lot of fun. That was very nerve-wracking, especially for anyone listening, everyone on here, right? Being an admitted student or a prospective student and watching Paul go up and do his thing, and then trying to be like, "Hey, I gotta be my best version of Paul," and the expectations are high, let's say.
You did great. And that's the other thing is you guys don't know how you should know. You know how great you are, right? I mean, we don't. There's a lot of this. People think that they just do. You guys are amazing, and the reason that you're here and the reason you're amazing what you do is because you did all that work yourself. And I will constantly tell people that these things don't happen by accident. Like we're picking the people that we know will be great representatives, that will have the great work ethic, and more to the point of the answer of the other question, which is my experience with working with all of you is that you have an understanding of all sides of things, right? You can get to the technical elements of it. You can get to the organizational elements of it. You can get to the conversational elements of it. You can see the macro. You can see the big picture. You can synthesize the information between these different types of individuals. And I think there's people that only know one of those lanes and not necessarily all of them together. And so it's always been a privilege to be able to work with you guys and others that have been on the podcast and others that have been VSAs that weren't on podcasts, but we're doing equally challenging and really, really cool work that's been fun to see. And it's always fun to stay in contact with you. I wanted to leave the last little bit here to turn the reins over to you guys. Questions you wanted to ask that you never did. It's your time. whatever you want to talk about, it's your thing. And then we'll just talk freely. And then Safi and I will discuss whether we actually edit it out of the podcast or not, depending on what you're asking. Which I'm assuming we won't, but go, like, I don't know, anything you wanted to know about this place. And Safi, this includes you. This is your guys' time.
I'll leave the floor to them. I feel like I have to earn I'll come back for an episode of the future.
Got it. The 20th anniversary special.
Yes.
I guess I'll start with an easy one, Paul.
Yeah.
You're gassing us up, telling us how great we are. Why didn't you hire me the first time I interviewed to be a VSA?
Oh,
We've had this talk. I'm pretty sure we've had this talk. We've had this talk, and we had the same. I told you the same talk. This is why we also didn't hire Brenton when he first hired as VSA.
He interviewed me for USC.
Brenton's my BME godfather.
Brenton's the godfather to you,
so.
And he had the same exact path. In that, like, coming in out of first year, the BME competition in the VSA applicant pool was hot. And like, I couldn't fill the staff with all BMEs. And that happened with him and it happened with you. And it was like, we'll get him next year. And we did. And it all worked out great. And you know that. And we've talked about it.
Like I said, easy one to start.
Yeah.
What was the insurance policy that he was going to apply again?
You could just see it. Like high potential. And like, hey, we're going to get him back. Like we'll get him back. He's there. Like we're not, it wasn't that he wasn't fully cooked yet. There's some people that aren't fully cooked first year, right? They're not there yet. That's not the case for Brenton or Alex, but it was the sense of like, there were people that were above him that had more to talk about. And BME pool at that time was, it was a real problem in our applicant pool. Like to be VSAs, like can't fill the entire staff of BMEs. It's not the case now.
I guess, how has the applicant pool evolved since our time there, right? I know that when I was there, the big milestone was we crossed over, or we got gender parity in applications. And then, every year was just the numbers were just increasing like crazy. So I'm curious where they're at now.
Yeah. So I don't remember the trends and where we hit milestones for each of you as you go. And so if you haven't remembered numbers, let me know. But we're at over 3 years in a row of a little over 15,000 applications every year. And so I think if you go back, it would be somewhat of a pretty regular decline as far as that goes. So like you go back, you can see 13, you can see 12, you can see 10, et cetera, down the road. So we're at 15,000. I think we've essentially leveled off because we were at 15.5, and then 15. So that's kind of the last 3 years. And I feel like that's where we're going to lie for quite some time. Next year might be a little bit different with something I can't talk about, but because it's not come out yet. But next year we're going to do something new in an academic program that doesn't exist yet. And that's a little tease. But it will likely stay there. Our incoming class first reached, kind of balance in the pool of men and women, 50-50 men and women. And we've done that first year in fall 2019 and maintained that all the way through. And when I say maintain that, I'm counting 48 to 51% is like we've been kind of 48 to 51. One of those years was 51 or 52% women. And then this last year incoming class was the first year that we reached balance of gender across both first year and transfer students combined. And so the entire pool was 50-50, with the transfer pool being 65% women, which is like insane. And kind of somewhat of an anomaly, a really welcome anomaly in the applicant pool last year. And so that's kind of cool. As far as the only way to describe the pool is that it's been growing. And that's just kind of, like I said, I hope it's leveled off. Quality is obviously great. Students are great and could do cool stuff. It's an interesting world where we're one of the schools that students apply to and continue to apply to. And the question is, do students really want to go here, or are they applying to it because they just think it's a good school? And so I think we're just on that list that people are applying to, and it's interesting to see. We've got a campus visit program now that's much more streamlined. We do these information sessions mostly Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. The world of Meet USC is gone. We don't do that anymore. But we have these very scheduled events that they schedule with us and register with us. And like we're having right now somewhere between 75 to 250 people every single week come through our programs because it's a hot season right now. Post President's Day through spring break is like juniors visiting campus, and then we overlap that with the admitted student events, which are Explore USC. Explore USC is no longer a 2-day event. You guys remember it as a 2-day event? It's a
overnight. Yep.
Yeah, and so like that's where After Dark came into play. Safia was referencing it, like the students would stay overnight, and that was a nightmare for so many reasons. And thank God we don't do that anymore. But students come in for Explore, and we start with them now in the morning, and so we do like all engineering stuff with them all morning long. And then we take them to lunch, and then they can like tour and they can do stuff in the afternoon and hang out for the rest of the day. So we get cooking really fast in the morning, like a 10 a.m. session, 11 a.m. faculty, lab tour, lunch, student lunch. You guys take the VSAs, take the students out to lunch. That's like the hosting time now, is like go take the lunch and hang out for a little bit. Then they go to like student panels and stuff like that and tours in the afternoon. So everything's more streamlined. It's more efficient. You get in and get out, which I like a lot.
I'm sort of curious, Paul, for you, maybe twofold. One, I can imagine you've been at USC for a long time. And sometimes when I think back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't imagine how different it is, even though I only graduated like 4 years ago. Like how have you seen not just USC, but like higher ed, especially in engineering, change over the past 4 years? And has it accelerated? I'm thinking COVID is a big turning point. Obviously, just I think technology is growing at like a rapid pace in the past 4 years. Like it seems like a lot to keep up with.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I'll try to streamline. I think COVID changed how it changed. I mean, you guys know it. It changed how you work. It changed when you work, why you work, what you work on, how you work on it. And that in most ways, and I know for me personally, is for the better. Everything has gone much different and more streamlined. I'll give one example. You've mentioned interviews a few times. These guys, we don't do those anymore. We don't do in-person interviews where you all huddle around my desk and like, talk to this guy and they're freaked out and nearly crying the whole time and get up afterwards. That doesn't happen anymore. We do those over a video conferencing version of that, so the kid is in their home. It's a little more, it's a different vibe. There are a lot of pros and cons, which I can get to differently at a different time with each of you guys individually. And I think we might even stop that. So there's some stuff that's moving in the direction of efficiency, and is it worth it? Do we get anything new out of it? There's a lot of those types of questions that come into play as far as maximizing optimization, if that makes sense. And I don't think anybody starts the conversation by let's maximize our optimization here. I think they just talk about like, does this work anymore? Is this something we want to do? Higher education in general, we've alluded to it today a lot, that in my opinion, because I'm remote, I don't have a sense of community vibe on campus that much anymore. And I think that that's not bad. It's just, it's a different vibe because, as I mentioned, it's just more spread out and people have their pockets that they go into. And I think that Safia is listening to this, like hearing things about certain places and wondering, like, am I missing anything? And I don't think you're, like you told me, Safia, I don't think you're missing anything. It's just, it's in a different place.
And you don't know what you, like, you don't miss something that you never had kind of situation.
And the main issue for me as like a quote administrator is like, I just don't see it anymore. When I used to see the community, I know it still exists. It's just in these different pockets, and that's fine. The students are in their own spaces, and that's where it needs to be. STEM education, or the ideas of engineering education, I think is interest has grown and strengthened over time, but also new fears have come into play. And so now you've got this like swell of high school students interested in STEM, not as many people prepared for STEM, which is interesting. I think that we have more of a swell of passion and interest in like, I want to do cool things. And then we say, what have you done in high school? They're like, not any of that. Like we haven't gotten through a hard math and science classes. I'm not good at that. I'm like, well, then we need to talk about what STEM is. Like we need to talk about like how a lot of that is math and science and you got to be good at it. So I'm having a lot of those conversations lately with high schools. Or the other side of it, quite literally a session I just did with a bunch of high schools in Pasadena, and overcoming myths, which we've done podcast episodes, all of us, I think, at some point about myths and reality related to admission. And everyone is attempting to reverse engineer the admission process. And so I can see that if I do this, this, and this, and if I do that, then that means I'm admitted, right? And so it's the thing that you guys have all had experience in talking to prospective students about, which is the idea of like handicapping their chance of admission, but now it's like this sense of like real calculated stuff, and people believe that there is a specific formula that they could figure out to get in, and it's just like no, but by you seeking that formula, you've now diminished your high school life, which in a way has shot yourself in the foot, because we're looking, and you all know this based on what we've talked about, what you find USC cool is that you had the preparation, you're ready to go, and you also brought a bunch to our community. And when someone has like engineered their high school life to be going to college for engineering, it means that they haven't been a real high school student to do real high school things, to then understand what you might do in college, to then, to your guys' point, to corporate America, who will you be there? And so I think you guys are going to start to see a new generation that you're going to hire and start to train. You're going to wonder, what are you doing? you're going to get certain people coming from lots of schools that will look technically brilliant on paper, and then start to talk to them, and they will have only followed recipes through their life. And then they're going to come to you, and you may have experienced this already with, okay, but like, how exactly do I do this? And you all know, and this is something we talk about as a VSA, I don't give you specific instructions. I'm like, here's a goal we're shooting for. Let me know what you want to do on your way there. And you all know that that's how you do that in the real world as well. Like, we're shooting for this goal. Let's figure this out. But you're going to get a lot more of like, yeah, but you got to tell me how to do this. That's a little, I think that's what you're kind of asking. I don't know. I went on a couple tangents.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. And yeah, I think Paul, you like are good at reading people, right? And I think you're kind of reading these generations of kids. So like in some ways I feel detached from that, but it's good to hear the perspective now.
It's
and I guess
fascinating.
I'll get re-looped, as you said, as
it's fascinating. And
us.
You guys are going to start to, you guys, if you haven't seen it already, you're going to start to see it in hires, and it's going to be really, really interesting for corporate America.
What's the most popular major within engineering? Because when I was a student, it was like comp sci was huge. Like that was the trendy thing. And then I feel like BME was also pretty popular. And civil, we were like the small little family on the side that not as many of us.
When you were a student, comp sci was not that big, which is really funny.
Really? It felt like
yeah.
everyone was like, I want to do comp sci, comp sci. Like that was like the up and coming thing.
This is my other favorite thing. What people talk about and what they actually do are two different things. Right.
Fair.
And so that said, I think there's been an overwhelming trend over 10 years of interest in comp sci. But then there's only so many people that can do it. And so then, and Cameron might be able to speak to this as well, because I know we talked a lot about this while he was there. The idea like, well, I can't do comp sci, but I'm going to take this like other class so I can kind of pretend to have computer requirements under my belt. And so then I'm going to look good to a recruiter, even though I'm not a technical degree program. And you might even see that as you recruit students, Cameron.
Yeah, I guess like in a formal capacity, I have to sort of reserve my comments, when I'm a representative of my employer.
Mm-hmm.
But like on my personal thing, I think it's like, I mean, it's like a lot of folks will try to say like, oh, like it's like you're trying to equate an applied math major to being a mechanical engineer. Those don't quite have much to do with each other. But you need math for engineering, but they need a lot more than that to be a mechanical engineer. So some people will take a coding class, and I'm like, that's not quite what you want to do. You want to be a software engineer, so it's very different. But yeah, I've seen that a lot, and I actually was going to ask is that like, I've seen like a difference of like people trying to pursue like something that is tangential to engineering to say it, and it sort of falls flat once I start talking to them. Like, oh, like that's not, you don't quite understand like what it is or why it works. It's like that, there's a difference between making it. But I was curious, like, so I see that, and I feel like there's also, I was going to also ask like if there's a difference between like the sort of the culture between like traditional engineering and then what we called CS, because I remember I would just call it engineering. But I remember you started calling out like, oh, our engineering and computer science students, because some people didn't even realize that
they don't realize it.
Computer science was engineering.
Let me finish my answer to Kelly, and then I'll get back. That's a great question. So basically, as far as like the two biggest departments, it's going to be CS and aerospace mechanical, right? So like that's kind of be consistently like where numbers are, but right behind them is biomedical engineering, and civil environmental is always going to be somewhat of a smaller program in general. And so we're probably seeking to enroll 25 civil engineers, 20 environmental engineers every single year. But that sounds smaller, but it really isn't, because when you look at CSBA majors, we're going to bring in 25. We're going to bring in about 20 CS games majors. We were going to bring probably around 40 computer science majors in there. And so these programs aren't like, stationed out to be like giant. It's just that because there's a lot of breadth to some of the departments and kind of what they do, it kind of gets a little bit bigger as you go.
Yeah.
And aerospace and mechanical is great. But what's funny about this is that I've been here long enough that I see dips and I see hills and valleys on every single thing. Like aerospace was dead for a long time and now it's back, and computer science was dead for a long time and now it's big. And what's funny is that what's happening with computer science right now is it's going down. But the only reason it's going down for two reasons, which are compounding, and they're both nonsense. And it happens to me at least daily now that a student says, or a parent says, not a student, he wants to study computer science, but I already told him we don't need that anymore. We have artificial intelligence now. So why would we ever need computer science students again? And there's a true belief among like the technical illiterate that we don't. I'm like, who do you think makes that stuff? It's computer science people and electrical and computer engineering people. And there's going to be data people on the industrial systems engineering side. And like, that's not a thing. And then the other side of it is fear, where people are thinking in highly resourced communities that they are prepped and they think that they're not going to get into computer science because they've heard it's so impacted, which is true nationwide, but that doesn't necessarily translate to the USC applicant pool as much. It's hard to get into all the majors at USC. So you can either say every major in engineering is impacted or none of them are impacted, and both are true because they're just all hard to get into. So people are calculating chances of admission, again, to that reverse engineering question, and then choosing things they want to go to. I'm having more and more individual talks with kids to say, don't be scared away from something because you want to do it. And we're getting into that realm with computer science, but we saw a huge nationwide engineering schools, computer science, everything related to computer science took a hit this year, like 24%. Nationwide, which I've been talking to colleagues at engineering schools across the country, and we're all comparing the same notes and we're getting the same stories.
I thought you were going to say it was like people who think that they don't need to go to a university to study computer science, right? Do like Y Combinator, do some sort of non-formal education.
That persists. That's kind of an ongoing thing that will persist. But yeah, it's not as loud as the other people, which is really interesting. And then Cameron, I'm sorry, you asked, completely blanked on your question. It was about, so I say engineering and computer science because yes, there are so many schools across the country that computer science is not part of the engineering school, or there's like splintered versions of computer science at different places. So I really try to say those words together because the Viterbi School of Engineering is composed of all the engineering and computer science majors. And so some people think, I don't want that. And then you've seen this, Cameron, too. Hey, the computer science department, go over here, split off. You're going to talk to a computer science faculty member, electrical engineers go over there, mechanical engineers go over here. And then get somebody to say like, you didn't tell me where I'm going. I'm like, what are you majoring? I'm majoring in computer science business. I'm like, go to computer science. Yeah, no, but I'm not majoring in computer science. I'm majoring in computer science business. I'm like, just get over there, buddy. Like, calm down. It's the same thing. Like, relax, get in there. And that's just, people are like, so people get hyper specific as to what they want to do. And I think there's differences.
I was just curious about it because I felt like there was a difference, especially just because like the level of like math and physics you have to take at certain other places like isn't the same. Whereas like here, like I don't know, I took like up to like multivariable calculus. That's like diffuse by accident and all that sort of stuff. So
by accident, you tripped.
I was still mechanical, so that's why I took it.
Got it. Yeah, and there are a lot of different. I think to your point, there are a lot of different definitions of an educational program called computer science across the nation, and they may not, and they stem out of math programs, not engineering schools.
These aren't hard questions. Have a totally separate question.
Yeah.
One of the things when I talk about my experience hosting the podcast, and I know that's kind of how we all ended up reconvening together. A lot of my friends who went to other schools were like, why were you hosting a podcast about engineering?
I'd love to hear this story. Yeah. Like, what do you tell them? This is like, hey, what are you doing? You're a podcast host? You're at a biomedical engineering school. And this is also, you went to Harvard Business School. And so I'm assuming that these conversations came up there.
Yeah, and people are like, what do you mean you hosted a podcast about specifically engineering within your school? So I've always been curious, Paul, about what your thoughts around this like media empire of VSA were and why you started building it that way, and also what is next for the VSA media adventures.
I think I had this conversation with many of you throughout the years, which is sounds cool. Let's do it. And it is attempting to create messaging across a number of different, this sounds really technical, but it's the only way to say it, creating messaging opportunities across as many platforms as possible. And that by no means was said at any point when we did it. It's just like, yeah, that sounds cool. It's like Twitter starting. What's Twitter? I don't know. It's a thing that we can like put stuff on and maybe people will see it and we'll do it. But like it started with Twitter. I think we were the first people at USC that have a Twitter account. And then we started using it officially and putting it into, like, I remember specifically having a conversation, multiple conversations with business affairs people about, I need a line on my business card to add a Twitter account. And they said, that doesn't exist. We don't have a line. I'm like, make a damn line. Like, just add a line. And we went in fights for years. And I literally said, can you take the fax number out? I don't need the fax number on my business card. No one is faxing me. I want to put a Twitter account. And we got into arguments like HR and everything else. Like, no, that doesn't exist. This is the format for USC business cards. Cut to today, and it's like Weibo and all this other stuff. And people have like all different versions of business cards. And it's just, to me, it's like that. I find that stuff personally interesting. I think it's super, engaging to find platforms. That was '06. We're nearly 20 years later. I think it was, to me, if I look back on it, I was a different age. And so I was at this moment of like feeling like I could have all my feet in the right platforms at that time. I definitely don't feel that way anymore. But I think I understand how I felt about it and would inspire you guys to say, like, for example, Snapchat, Alex, like, what are you going to do on Snapchat? Like, tell me. I'm not on it. I don't want to be on it. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't fit me, but I know it fits you and whatever you're going to do. And then we went to TikTok. And so we've existed on Twitter, we've existed on TikTok, and we've existed on Instagram. Correct me if you or add any ones you may know. We did the podcast thing because podcasts were hot. And it's like, Kelly, to your point, that's when Serial took off, because that's when I started like into podcasts. And so like I was just absorbing. And I think that one thing that I do is I absorb media. Like, I like absorbing media, and I like seeing between the gears. I'm like, oh, I see what they're doing on the other side. I could see how they're using that. And it's not like from an advertising perspective, but it's just using that technical stuff to get into someone's life in some sort of way. And so we just kind of capitalize as much as we can and then draw a line where there's money, right? So do we want to spend money? Do we not want to spend money? How much money do we want to spend? Is that going to make sense? And then, it's as simple as we can mail something physically. I can email something, or we can maintain these radio signals that are broadcasting 24 hours a day. A website is one of those. Social media accounts are others. And then the question is not doing one of those, but it's making sure that we're kind of keeping all of those lighthouses in play, and then allowing for wherever you are to find your way into it. YouTube is another big one, which was long predated any of those other ones. So I just think it's kind of cool. But then we pull stuff back. Like, we've taken down TikTok. We don't do that anymore. It's just because it wasn't hitting the right space for us as a quote unquote brand, because we are a brand. We're not a person that's out there. But Instagram is still working, and it's working great. And then also the other side of that is now we have layered audiences. We have prospective students, and then we have parents of prospective students. And so where are we hitting one of them or both of them? And high school students are using it in a very different way than any of you did, if at all. And we're just constantly adjusting where we are. I don't know if that's answering your question. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it absolutely is. And I feel like when my friends in business school would ask about it, I'd be like, it was my introduction to omni-channel marketing was Viterbi.
That's it.
VSA. Like, that's how you get in everyone's inbox. That's how you hit them at the top of the funnel, in the middle of the funnel, like all of the things about traditional marketing and strategy. I feel like my first introduction was as a VSA and creating content and blogs and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So it was a really fascinating and rewarding experience. And I didn't know what I was doing in the moment, but looking back on it, it's like, wow, there was so much strategy and thought there, which even is unique within the USC ecosystem, because none of the other schools were really working that way either. So
I like the business school terms. I like the business school terms. Omnichannel I use a different term.
Omnichannel marketing.
What I actually use is what I refer to as a hub spoke model. And
yes,
so
we also use that one.
We have the hub, and I rarely explain this to the students when we're doing it, but like our hub, and I explain it to all my staff, is that our hub of information is our website. And the hub must constantly be up to date and must constantly have all the information that you need. And then your spokes are the things that are outreach elements that are out there, or the different channels that you're getting at. And so we're going to create email blasts. We're going to have drip mail campaigns. We're going to have specific little triggers on websites to get people into our pipeline. And then on the back end of stuff, some of you guys might like this, some of you may not. I know Booty might really like it because he did a lot of our data, but like all of our CRM stuff on the back end of using a system that didn't exist, that you guys don't even know anything about, but we have some really cool stuff now of all of the incoming students and prospects and filtering them out and creating those elements and then getting the outreach elements to them. And a cynic will say, "Oh, you're like buying kids." I'm like, no, we're not. We're doing outreach, and they can tell us to stop, or they can say, "Oh, cool, I didn't hear," and we'll hit them at the right points at the right time. So like literally this year already, we did omni-channel marketing. We pushed out a giant mailer, a physical mailer to high school juniors, come visit campus, followed up by an email. And then we have the ads on the podcast. And then we're hitting them up with these drip campaigns saying, "Hey, do you know we have a podcast? You want to check out our podcast?" And if you got into that. And so like, it's not evil, but it's the idea of like, we have stuff. Do you want to engage? Where do you want to engage? We'd love to engage with you. And hopefully you're getting good information about it. I live for this stuff. I think it's cool. Because I like seeing the other side of it. I can grab a student in our CRM and I can see where they hit a trigger and I can see what that then did to it. And then I can see when they apply and then I can see how they go through the process. And it's not for purposes of admission. It's just for like, oh, I can see it working. I can see it all working. It's really cool. And we're going to hopefully do some cool stuff with parents in the coming year because we're going to turn on some stuff for parents, which would be fun. So we might start creating a whole other element there. Harvard Business School. That's what Harvard Business, omni-channel marketing. I love it. I'm going to start using the term.
That's what happens when I transitioned from engineering to strategy.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. You all have been great. We've been over our time, and I wanted to be, very respectful of your time, especially with it's the middle of the day for most of us. Cameron, I know you're into nighttime now, but I appreciate that you all being here. And once again, you have always been the billboard students that I talk about. They're the ones that came to USC, that have lived up to that hype that we talk about. And I've been doing a lot of thinking. I spend a lot of time at this time of year thinking about how I'm going to talk to newly admitted students. And I often try to figure out, not on purpose, but like what are the metaphors that people come into play. And I realized that this year, one of my themes that I'm really getting into is that any college campus is very much a core set of beliefs, right? And you visit campuses with the impression that you're going to go find the best one. Like you're out there like trying to find the best product, and you think of it from like a customer perspective. But I think on the other side of it, you start to look back and say like, yeah, those are beliefs that I bought into and that I'm going to hold up to, and then I'm going to grow. And I'm going to make my own set of beliefs out of those beliefs. And I'm going to inspire the next set of beliefs that come in afterwards. And so I've been really, really like thinking really, really hard about belief systems, belief structures, communities that share common values. And USC and any other college is essentially a place where belief structures come into play. You all said, yeah, I like what you're doing, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to make it better. And all of you have done that consistently. And I thank you for that. So thank you so much for being here. I truly, truly appreciate it. Safia has been doing a great job this year of filling your shoes. And we're really excited that you got to all connect and do this really. And so if you ever all need anything from me, you know where to find me because I'm still here. This is 25 years that I've been here. So this is my 25th year. We'll see if I go 26. I don't know. I'm getting old. I'm getting old, gray in the long in the tooth here. So Thank you so much, guys. This is my most fun thing that we do. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Paul,
having
Paul.
us.
Thanks,
You, Paul.
including us. Yeah.
Thanks, Sophia.
All right. I think we're done. Thanks, guys.
Thank you
Cool.
guys.
Appreciate each of you.
Thank
Good to see
you.
everyone.
Yeah, thanks. This is a lot
Yeah,
of
good
fun.
to see everyone.
I'll hit you up on LinkedIn when this thing goes live. Tag you all in it and everything. Okay.
Awesome.
I think, are we doing this week or next week, Sophia?
It's gonna be this week.
Oh, it's gonna be this week. Okay,
Wow.
we're dumping on
Quick
Sunday.
turnaround.
That's
Oh,
very
wow.
impressive.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.